people love to place their opinions on you of what you're doing or trying to prioritize your fitness or nutrition, or you're too strict or you're too this, that, or the other. That's hard to hear at times, but then I remind myself of where I've come and how far I've come and the depression that I've stayed out of and all the anxiety that I've not had, because I choose to live this life every single day. And because I do have a God that is stronger and more powerful than anything that can happen in this world, that is where I lay my faith. That is where I put my life. And I know that I'm going to be much more successful for myself and my family if I continue to do the things that I'm doing. And those few people may not like it, but that's okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SupersetYourLife.com podcast. This is your weekly dose of inspiration, entertainment, and education to fuel your life inside and beyond the gym. Two really quick things before we get going. Number one, we do not accept donations for the show, but if you would like to support us, we do invite you to our website, SupersetYourLife.com, where you will find our original patented Skullbellz line of skull-themed weightlifting equipment, apparel. We also have premium health and bodybuilding supplements, and now we have Skullbellz coffee. That is actually Blackfin coffee with a Skullbellz label on it. Pretty cool. It's a Pacific Northwest-based small batch roasting company that we've been supporting for about the last year in an effort to contribute to their mission to save the orcas. So there's an environmental purpose behind it. All coffee purchases that go through our website help support this cause. And enjoy some darn good coffee while you're at it. We also have decaf. And the last thing to cover is just two customer reviews of the week I wanted to pick out. First one is from Carly up in Bothell. She is one of our bodybuilding women's physique clients, and she said, "Your logbook was a hit at the gym today. Had several people ask where I got it, along with the Skullbellz rope cable attachment. They especially like the quote in the book today." The quote in the book today, there's a motivational quote on the bottom of every single page, and it says, "Wow, I really regret that workout." And that was nobody that said that one. So anyway, you can grab those off of our website at SupersetYourLife.com. We have the first edition in stock, several of them, and we're going to be getting a second edition too that's going to have all new motivational quotes in it. And the other review is from Zach Salvit in Bozeman, Montana. He says, he's referring to the Skullbellz cable attachment. He got an orange pair. He said, "These things are truly awesome." Smiley face with stars. "And I love supporting my friend's small business, Skullbellz, that I know won't stay small for long." So thank you very much, sir. Love the encouragement. Very, very much appreciated. And our cable attachments are all on our website. So I'm trying to keep all of our colors in stock right now. I just pulled out a white batch, bone white. It's a pretty cool color. Other than that, I think that most of our colors are in stock. So check it. If it says out of stock, check back in a couple days. Then hopefully I'm on top of it, and we're keeping them all in. So yeah, other than that, that's all we need to cover before we get into the interview with the one and only Crystal Sikes.
Crystal Sikes is a ketogenic bodybuilder, owner of Lady Savage LLC, co-founder of Keto Savage Primal Performance and Keto Brick LLC, along with her husband, Robert, a coach and a soon-to-be mom. At the time of this recording, she is 29 weeks pregnant, still coaching, still deadlifting, and still willing to do this podcast with us. This is her second appearance on our show, of which we are absolutely honored to continue our conversation, this time into some deeper topics, including the ketogenic diet for women's health and aesthetics, building Keto Brick ketogenic meal replacement bar with her husband into the enormous business it is today. We just placed another order for their variety pack. Mocha is Colt's favorite.
Yeah, definitely.
Peanut butter is mine. The faith we share in Jesus Christ. We will also be touching on some struggles all three of us have faced, including eating disorders, stomach ulcers, other health issues, such as chronic fatigue syndrome, vitamin deficiencies, hormone and neurotransmitter imbalance, some unexpected family deaths and blending families, recurring depression and anxiety. I'm sure that you as the listener can relate to some of these, and our prayer is that you find her story encouraging. On her website, you will find ways to connect with her, including nutrition and fitness coaching plans and one-on-one connection calls. Her website is ladysavage.com and ketobrick.com, Instagram at the.lady.savage and at ketobrick. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the legendary Lady Savage.
Hey guys.
Right. So in a nutshell, what has the ketogenic diet done for you?
Oh my goodness, in a nutshell.
I said in a nutshell.
Okay, well, first, I started keto for my health issues, that I had a ton of GI issues and things like that. And Robert, my husband, had already been doing keto, and so he was really encouraging to me to start this path of my life.
Yeah.
So I dabbled in it a little bit, and then finally just decided, like, I'm going all in. Let's do this. And almost immediately, a couple months in, I started to feel much better, but it did take me a couple months to reverse a lot of the different things to start to feel a little bit better. But once that started to feel better, I just kept going and going and going. And then after a couple of years, I went to get retested for a few different things with my stomach. And they were like, things look so good. You look so healthy, like all of these things. And I started lifting weights after starting keto. And really, it's been like a 180 in life, just kind of flipping it around. And I feel like keto was my first stepping stone.
So with your clients, do you use, I'm assuming that you use strictly and only ketogenic approach, being that that's what you specialize in then?
Yeah, I haven't had like an actual full carb meal in like 6 years. So I'm not sure I would be able to properly give someone a higher carb diet. And because it's what I live, and how it's just changed my life so much, that if someone's interested in keto, I feel like I'm much better able to help them. And if they aren't interested in it, I feel like sending them to someone else who is doing what they prefer would be a better avenue for me to kind of go down. But yeah, so I do just keto. Some people, if they are just entering in or kind of going super low carb is intimidating to them, I might start them off a little bit higher, like 40 grams, 50 grams, maybe. And then, over time, we kind of adjust and figure out how to get them to a more optimal level of fat, protein, and carbs for their body.
Do you ever have somebody that has like a fear of letting go of carbs, and somebody that says, hey, like I really want to go keto and I really want the results, but I just don't feel like I can give up pizza, or I don't feel like I love ice cream, and like every Saturday night is ice cream with the family, that kind of thing. Do you ever run into that?
Yeah, I actually, like, someone super close to me just messaged me that this morning. And yeah, I have that, with people in my life, but also with clients. They're just so adjusted to doing that. And I think a lot of the fear part is getting rid of the carbs and increasing the fat so much. They're so afraid of the fat and feel like the carbs, especially people who are already lifting and things, they've been told over and over and over again that carbs is where it's at when it comes to muscle building. So yeah, definitely some fear. Definitely have to deal with some of that part.
How do you help them transition like their mindset with that to, fats are a good thing. The ketogenic diet is a good thing. I guess they wouldn't be reaching out to you if they weren't interested in it in the first place. So, but
yeah, they're usually they're pretty interested in it already. And I think just presenting them with some facts is really helpful.
Yeah.
And just saying okay, over this period of time, as you're transitioning, go get lab work done. Go, see how you feel, test your ketones, test your blood glucose, test all of these things, so that not only are you going to be able to feel better or worse, but you're also going to be able to see it in the data as well, and kind of see what maybe your doctor is going to say about it, or whatever in those lab results. And I think that that's really helpful, because you can try anything for 3 months. And if you hate it, then do something different. But I always tell people, give it a fair shot, give it several months. And then if you hate it, or it's just not for you, then adjust your plan of action.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's great advice when you have a shorter term goal, saying you don't have to do this the rest of your life. You're not going to get fat again as soon as you start eating carbs again. If you want to eat carbs, intentionally and do it the right way. But okay, you can do anything for a month straight. You can do anything for 2 months. And like you said, if you have people that we start on keto and then we'll switch into a higher protein, like more of a gluconeogenesis approach, which is still a low carb diet, and they like it better. So yeah, we don't always stick with exactly what we started with anyway too. So
yeah.
Right. Yep.
That's great. Thanks for that. So I think that leads pretty well into the area of vitamin deficiencies. I know that's something that you've struggled with in the past. Is that something that the ketogenic diet has helped you to be able to better balance?
Yeah. I mean, I think that just all in all, I have a better balanced diet. I never really I always ate like processed foods. I always ate just a bunch of junk and frozen meats and things like that were just like really easy to make because I just didn't care. And so transitioning to keto was really helpful. But even over the years, I feel like I've chosen more grass-fed meats and things like that. And you don't have to do all of that. But as I've progressed, that's the way that my progression has led me to. So being able to have those higher quality meat sources and even vegetables or fermented things like sauerkraut and yogurts and stuff like that. Just knowing exactly what's going into my body and why it's going in has been really, really helpful. And just feeling better and doing better and making sure that everything in your body is level for sure. So yeah, I think it's been a long journey, a long process of getting to the point where I am now, but every single year, every single day, every single month has just gotten better and better.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Has transitioning to whole foods, just like in general, and healthier, more nutrient dense foods been a key factor in overcoming eating disorders? I know that Robert and I both on when we talked on his show, he and I dove quite a bit into it, and he and I both basically have the same background and the same story of the ketogenic diet really being something that helped that, and just low carb diets in general. And, to hear that you've also experienced that, and even Taylor to some degree, probably not as much as the rest of us, but I'm just wondering if the nutrient dense foods has been a key factor in that.
Yeah, totally. I had some issues as I was kind of like leaning into keto. And I think a lot of that was having a problem, like getting rid of all the sugars and the things that I was loving, like cookies and pastries and big fat burritos and stuff like that. It was hard for me to make the transition and to commit to myself. And eventually I just kind of had to put my foot down and say, I can't do this anymore. But then I did really, really well for several years until I decided to compete in my bodybuilding competition. And after that, rather than reverse dieting real well, I still stayed keto the entire time, but it was more the processed keto stuff that I was enjoying. Too many nuts even. At that time, I wasn't really paying a lot of attention to the different types of oils I was consuming. So that led into a whole binge eating cycle. And even though I was keto, it was just like I wanted anything and everything. And that wasn't specifically, I don't think it specifically had to deal with the types of food I was eating. It was totally a hormone imbalance of, leptin, ghrelin, all of those things. After you've been dieting for that many weeks and pushing yourself physically, doing the extra cardio, stressing your body on the competition day. Even though we did everything right, I let myself lose control, and that kind of spiraled me for quite some time. It took me a little while to get out of that, but I think focusing in on getting back to whole foods, focusing on what I'm eating, why I'm eating it, was really helpful for me to get out of it. And at the point of trying to get out of it and get over it, I stopped tracking because I just felt like that was a big trigger for me, but started focusing in on the types of foods, like whole foods, focusing on meats and vegetables and things like that. And just zoning in on whole foods is a huge helper. Those processed things can really get you. They'll sneak in on you, and you have no idea how much it'll lead you to eating the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, even keto approved or not.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. This guy that just started his workout plan for the first, this is his first week. And I get this question with every single new client is this okay? Is this okay? And it's always like pictures of Quest bars and like keto ice cream and stuff. And then see the back of the label and like the total carbs is like 40 grams. I'm like, boy, no, it's
Well,
not.
ingredients that are in
You need
there.
to make like a read me that just like everybody reads the answers to all these questions that we keep answering.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can. So to summarize, is basically what you're saying, that you did a ketogenic diet approach for your bodybuilding show, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Even with that, you felt probably as good as you could have, but it's still a bodybuilding show, and you're still shredded. You took first place, so congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
It's obviously worth it, but just because it's a keto prep, obviously, it doesn't magically make it
Easier.
magic carpet, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely do think if I wasn't, I would have had a lot more options to go crazy, and I would have allowed myself to go even more nuts. But I will say that I think that a lot of what I was going through was a lot of mental, like going through a prep it can be really lonely because there's not a lot of people going through it with you. Even though I had Robert and everything, he wasn't going through it with me. It was just me against myself, and that was it. So once I kind of crossed that threshold of, gosh, we made it to competition day. Gosh, I stinking won. How did that happen? Then it was just like, I deserved this. And then I just kept giving in to myself, and it was totally a mental thing. And then it turned into like a physical, I can't feel full, so I'm just going to keep eating until I can't anymore. And so even though it was keto, it was still a lot of mental work that had to be put into it, which I think has grown me so much over the years. I hate that I had to go through it, but I'm really grateful I went through it because it's led me to where I am now.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Thanks for sharing that. It takes a lot of courage to share stuff like that too. That's basically where I was at after every single one of my shows, and I followed my coach's diet plan to the T, to the everything that exactly the way that he said to. And he always told me that vegetables, he's like, don't worry about vegetables. Like if you want broccoli or whatever, just go ahead and eat it. It'll make you feel fuller. And I was like, okay. We were going through like 25 pounds of broccoli a week, and it was just like ridiculous. And I mean, those calories probably added up, but yeah, I mean, it was just, my gut was a wreck. And the last prep that I did was not for a real show. It was a mock prep. So I got basically not quite as lean as I would get for stage, but I just felt so much better without any carbs at all. So I could already see the difference between the two. And that'll be my next prep is going to be no carbs. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I think too, with like what you're talking about with the reverse diet, when you're going through a prep, that's what people talk about. They never really talk about like the mental battle that competitors go through post show. Like I know you've gone through like post show blues and just the struggle of a reverse diet because you're so hungry. I mean, I haven't gone through them before, but I've watched him go through 8. So, I mean, I feel like I've gone through them before. So yeah, I'm really glad that you talked about that.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they're so excited for you to do your competition that they're like keeping up on, how are you doing? Are you getting lean enough? Are you this? Are you that? But no one's checking in on you after the show. No one's saying, hey, have you made it back to your maintenance? Hey, are you here? Are you there? They don't really care after you've done the show. They just think, oh, yep, they're back to normal. And it makes it that much harder. It really is you against you, and just keeping yourself and your mind and everything under control. And it's hard.
There's somebody that I knew pretty well that won her first show several months ago, and she ended her life just a couple of weeks after. I mean, you see it with Olympic athletes, you see it with people, especially after they take first place for whatever reason. Those next couple of weeks are rough. And I've been there too with the depression and the anxiety and everything. So especially this last year, right? Gosh. So I know that you've experienced some chronic depression and anxiety. Is that something that the ketogenic diet has helped? Or like, I know that you have a very disciplined faith practice around your prayer and your Bible reading. Like, is that all kind of help you through that?
Yeah. So before I started keto, I was in like a really terrible place. Mostly I was just so hung up on what was going on with my health that I just wanted to feel sorry for myself, I think. So I was super depressed during that time. I didn't feel like I had a lot of support. Then I met Robert and was seeing a whole bunch of doctors, and then we started keto, and everything just started getting a little bit better over time. And then I got, I was totally fine. I was great for a little while. And I think the next time I really went through a good state of depression and anxiety mixed, it was the weirdest and worst experience, was after my show, which was also very hard because I had just won the show, but Robert and I got engaged on my show day. So I was also like planning a wedding and doing all these really awesome things, but I like couldn't get out of my own head. And I was so like, Robert used to call me a zombie. He's like, you're walking around like a zombie. What's going on with you? And it was just like, I couldn't control my feelings. And I was like, I'm miserable, but I'm also happy. But also I can't control the way, like I can't sleep. All of these things were just a mess. And again, I was still keto, but I think dealing with the eating disorders and not trying to be too hard on myself for letting myself gain all of the weight back plus some and all of that. It was such a wild roller coaster of emotions. And that was probably the worst experience I've had, as far as like getting depressed and things like that. But there was just a moment where I thought, I'm not here to do that. I don't need to do this alone. And that is when I feel like I started digging even more into my faith and just saying like, I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. So this is kind of what I have to lean into. And I feel like that even started like a new journey for me and with Robert, and just digging more into the Bible and figuring out what Bible study I wanted to be a part of and things like that. Whereas before it was like, yeah, I mean, he's here, but I don't really like invest in that relationship and I don't really pray that often and things like that. But during that time, it was like, this is my only way out. Like, this is my only option, just to get a grip on myself and realize that I have God. I have God to kind of reach out to. And I remember there was one specific night I went outside and I was listening. I was listening to my Bible in like the Bible app, whatever app it was at the time. And I was sitting in the back of Robert's truck, just like sobbing, because it was just like, I am here for you. I'm holding you. Like, I've got you, like over and over and over again. And I was just like, wow, I'm dumb. Like, I've been trying to do this by myself. And that was a big, big sign that I am not here to do things by myself. And but there's another guy that really wants to help me out. So that was a huge, huge turning point, because that was like, Robert couldn't handle it anymore, like my depression anymore. I couldn't handle it. Like, I was just a miserable person to be around. And I tried to put a face on all the time, for our crew and everyone. I mean, nobody even knew how bad I felt because I was so good at hiding it. But once I was just like home, it was like, nah, I'm not even going to try to pretend anymore. Poor Robert. But yeah, I think kind of getting a grip on my food, getting a grip on my faith, all of that kind of stuff. It makes everything easier. It makes everything like you have goals to work toward. And then you feel like you have a backbone again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing that. Is there a favorite book of the Bible or a favorite devotional or something that was particularly helpful?
I loved Psalms. I just think Psalms is such a good book. Like, it's literally like poem after poem. So I feel like that really was a good place for me to be. And it's so long. Like, you have so many to read and to kind of digest and figure out. So I feel like Psalms was really, really good for me. But there wasn't like a specific devotional, and I haven't really found one that I just wanted to dig into, but we've been just kind of breaking up the Bible in doing like chapter by chapter, or I meet with a couple of people on Mondays, and we do like 7 chapters at a time. And then digest all of that together. And I feel like that's been really helpful for me rather than going through a devotional. Although that might be something that I might incorporate just for myself, to like a daily little devotional that's kind of light and fun and just a good little reminders.
Verse by verse is definitely where we like it, though.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad that you said that, actually, because as a matter of fact, there's several devotionals right there on my shelf that I read through all my preps, and they were great, but I didn't really, and they helped me through my prep and they kept me positive, but I never really got to know who God really is and what his character is really like until I did more what you're doing, which is reading just wherever the Spirit is calling you to read from the actual text. And it sounds like you've been doing that for quite some time, which is amazing. And I wish I would have started doing that a lot earlier.
Yeah. It's, gosh, the character of God, it is wild. Once you start really digging into it, you're like, why would he do that? But that's so cool. But like you're just like constantly going up and down and all over the place. And it's never going to be, you're never going to be able to fully digest it, but it's wildly amazing.
Yeah. We watched an episode of The Chosen. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It was episode 3, right?
Yeah. That was good.
And because we're going through it slowly because we don't have time. But it was when Jesus was teaching like this group of children, and it was so beautiful because it was just centered around that. And I think it hit both of us, just like to see like his love and his adoration for the children that he's, leading through their devotion to the Lord. And it was really neat because it kind of gave us a glimpse of just, the love that he has for us and kind of brought it to life. And it just gave us a different personality to kind of add to when we're reading the Bible. Whether or not it's super theatrical, which it could be at times, but it was really neat. And I love that. It was just a cool view for us to see. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I would love if the whole Bible was broken down like that in like a movie script like that. And some of it's accurate, some of it's not as accurate, but it gives you such a good visual. I'm a visual person. So it gives you such a good visual of like what's going on. And once you see kind of like a face, you're like, oh, that person's the same person that is over here. Like you kind of just like connect the dots.
Yeah.
I'd probably skip the part where Daniel starts describing the visions of the beast with the 7 horns and everything. Like that would probably give me nightmares. It would definitely be a rated R movie.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Touching back on something that we were going through before is some of your health issues. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned stomach ulcers of all things, because I had my first stomach ulcer experience
a month ago
in January.
No.
Diet was, let's just say, not the best throughout December and November. It was right out of my prep, and so I still kind of had the high ghrelin levels, all the just like starving my body to get as lean as I thought.
Your hormone levels were off.
Was reasonable. Yeah, definitely. I was taking a hit from that, and then being in Montana, being around my family and everything, there's lots of carbs, and then going, okay, you know what, it's bulk season. Like I really do need to put on a lot of muscle if I want to start winning shows. And so that was kind of my excuse, still not eating carbs, but like you were saying earlier, a lot of processed foods and everything, to the point where I'm like, I'm done being in a calorie surplus. Like my body just can't handle it anymore. I'm just stiff and beat up. And anyway, January was a particularly stressful month with just some we could say some extended family drama, and you throw like the busiest month we've ever had business wise on top of that too, and not getting a whole lot of sleep. It was an extremely stressful month, and winded up in the hospital with a stomach ulcer. Literally thought that I was going to die. So I don't know if that's.
I laughed not because I thought it was funny. It was just
I told her on the way there, if I had my gun with me, I would have shot myself in the foot just to get my brain off how bad my stomach hurt. Like that it was. And so here I am talking to someone that's going to have a natural birth and like, holy cow! Like
men don't know.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it was painful.
I shouldn't even be complaining, but I'm just wondering what your stomach ulcer experience was like and how you were able to get over that.
Yeah. So I didn't actually find out I had a stomach ulcer until a couple years after I had reversed a lot of the other things I was going through. We actually did a endoscopy and a colonoscopy to kind of see both sides. How is everything healing? All of that. Because they put me on a bunch of medications, and then I pretty much said, like, I'm not doing that. And I changed my diet, and everything else looked great. And I had that, the one ulcer, and I actually didn't even know at the time that I had it. But I always have like little issues here and there that kind of pop up. So it didn't really surprise me that anything was off. But it wasn't like horrific for me. And I think everything that I had gone through previously, like I have a gastroparesis and slow transit colon. So everything processes super slow, which was giving me a lot of like acid reflux, which was giving me a lot of erosion in my stomach and in my esophagus. So I think that was so bad that it was like anything after that was just like, we got this. Yeah.
Have you had any heartburn with your pregnancy?
I haven't. And I've been so surprised. Yeah.
Honestly, I bet it's because you're on a keto diet. Like when I had heartburn with both of our kids, I wasn't keto and it got really bad. I loved eggs and toast for breakfast. And as soon as I ate that toast is when it just came on and it would not go away.
So, it's so interesting.
I bet it's because you're on a keto diet. Like I'm like super sure about that, but I'm glad to hear that because it's awful.
Yeah, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, I'm real full. Like there's not a lot of room in here anymore. Yeah. And so I can feel that I'm full. So if I were to like force more food or like not do such small meals, I could see that maybe we'd have a little bit of acid reflux there. But it hasn't been an issue at all. And I'm so grateful. I'm just like crossing my fingers it stays that way.
Sure. I hope it does.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, another fun topic, chronic fatigue syndrome. So that's something that you've experienced, and has your training and your nutrition helped with that?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't really gotten tested or looked at that in quite some time. But before I went to keto, before I changed my training and everything, they did diagnose me with that. And it was like, what? What does that even mean? I'm like 21 years old. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. And I think over time that definitely was really helpful with training. And you would think, oh, chronic fatigue, that why would you go do more? And I think it's just like actively stressing your body in a good way, not stressing your body in a bad way. But I do think during that same time I was going through the depression and anxiety after my show, I was also dealing with just some hormones, not really being regulated. And I think during that time, I just had like a huge flare up of just fatigue. And I had it where like my hands and my feet hurt so bad. Like I would wake up in the morning and like didn't want to walk on my feet because they hurt so bad. And it's such weird symptoms that you feel. And it's like, you can't explain to anyone how exhausted you feel, even though you feel like you're doing everything right, or you feel like I've tried everything. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of just stuck here. And you just feel like you're sitting in a pile of your own self-pity because you just feel like junk and you don't really know how to get out of it. You're just stuck.
Well, I bet being, so young, you said 21, like that had to have been very defeating to feel that way at such a young age. Like I'm 28 and I'm exhausted all the time, which I basically chalk up to motherhood. But I'm like, there has to be ways to fix it. And I just started doing like acupuncture, but I can't imagine how at 21, that was just super defeating for you and just completely draining on top of the fatigue you're already feeling. So I'm glad that you're able to kind of work through that.
Yeah. Yep. I think it just kind of pops up and down. It decides to show its ugly face every once in a while and like, get out of here, but
it doesn't help that, but you can no.
Yeah. It is hard too, because Robert is just like, go, go, go all the time. He does not stop.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to allow myself to slow down when I know that I'm not doing well. I'm like, I need to chill out, because if I don't, my whole body's going to freak out on me in a second. So I just have to figure out what that is and how to relax. And yeah, I'm a little anxious to see what we'll do when I have another little one relying on me all the time.
You'll survive.
Yeah.
You'll get through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you and Robert have a very understanding dynamic too, where like you're very in tune with how each other, like when each other needs help or needs a break or anything. That's what Taylor and I have really been trying to work on, because she knows that, like you're saying, like I'm like, Robert, let's go. I push myself, and a lot of times to my detriment, and just going too hard sometimes. And she knows that like if it's just been enough phone calls or enough training or just whatever, to where I might need like a half hour in the middle of the day to just have nobody talk to me, let me eat a steak and read the Bible and pray for a little bit, like no matter what else is happening. And she'll bend over backwards through that for me, and I'll bend over backwards through that for her. And so we do that all the time, and it always happens in, stressful, like fast-paced situations, but we need to do that for each other. Otherwise the consequences can be severe. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you and Robert really have a mature handle on that.
Yeah, it definitely took us a little while to figure it out, but because
Us too.
Yeah. I feel like I'm the type of person that's I want to be there for people. I want to make sure that they're happy. Before my happiness, I want to make sure that they're happy. So a lot of times I would just go and go and go and go. And I was just exhausting myself. And it finally took me breaking down and saying like, I can't do this. And he's like, I never asked you to do that. You just were doing it. So I figured you were fine, And I think after I had really decided like this is the limit that I can go and not go, it was really good after that. And for Robert, he is, like you were saying, he just go all the time. But even in the very beginning of us dating, Robert always said, you remind me to take it easy, like to take life slow every once in a while and like enjoy some little moments, because he will just literally kill himself working. And I have to kind of remind him like, hey, you should go do something for yourself, or I don't know, or let's go on a date. Let's do something outside of your little box. So yeah, it's taken us quite some time, but I think we finally have a little balance going on, and it seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Your husband is the single most motivating bodybuilder that I have ever gotten to know. That guy cannot describe the amount of respect that I have for him. I'm serious. I mean, you just talk about integrity, just the way that he talks about you, the business that he's built for your guys' family. I mean, having so much in common with him too, having tried a number of get rich quick online stuff, and even being from Spokane. I didn't know you guys lived in Spokane.
Oh, I know. And I heard that. That's crazy. We went to school at Eastern. So.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
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 I was like, we could have worked out the same genes.
Yeah.
Maybe we did.
So funny. Yeah.
So one of the most motivating podcasts that we've ever heard was like a dozen or so episodes ago on your guys' show. And you and Robert talked about like all the late nights that you were up together making keto bricks, like not getting sleep or anything. And we can certainly relate to that, because as it sits right now, I have a 5 o'clock appointment, and then our client's coming over for dinner, and my phone's blowing up, and I'm not going to be able to get back to that. And then like I'm going to be up late working in the Skullbellz shop tonight. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did you stay on your diet when you were so low on sleep? Like, if I was working in your guys' keto brick factory, I would literally eat everything that was in there.
What's the craziest is we started Keto Brick when I was in my prep. So it was like, I was already on like a pretty strict regimen of like, eat this, don't eat that, so it was wild, but I just prepped everything and made sure that was all I ate, and I didn't want to go off of that. However, afterwards, I did enjoy some Keto Brick, that's for sure. But yeah, I think I think because it was such a big part of my life already, and I had messed up so much before that it was like, this is the one thing that makes me feel good. I'm going to keep going with it. And I knew if I went off or we just like allowed ourselves to get fast food or whatever would have been easy, we would have felt like junk and we wouldn't have been able to do all the things that we were doing because it was a wild time. We were just talking the other day in the car. We were like, man, we drove so much at night. Like we were so unsafe. We were so exhausted, like all of these things. We're like, never again. We'll never do that again. But I think the diet was easier to stay on top of. And I think our workouts are kind of what saved us a little bit because it was like our time to just enjoy. And it wasn't like we were working or our brains were working. It was just like, here we are to just work on our bodies and listen to music and just chill out a little bit.
That's awesome.
For you guys. I'm sure that you and Robert never, ever argue.
Never, not once ever in our whole relationship. Probably not.
How do you set boundaries around when you are working and your business partners and you're on a date and you're married?
Oh boy, guys, that's a good one.
Area there, I'm guessing.
What would you say?
There's probably like a lot of gray area where it's like, okay, we're supposed to be on a date, but we have a hot lead right now, or like we're.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. Like Robert has a new saying that I'm not going to say out loud, but it's like it's balance is BS pretty much. But and that's true to some extent because we've built our lives and our business around the things that we love. And so we want them in our lives. We want all of those things to be the things that we talk about. However, there is a point where it's like, this is too much. Like we've got to like, let it sit and simmer for a little while. And usually I'm the one that says that, like, can we just not do the work thing right now? Let's just like talk about Rigel or something, like let's talk about something else. And that usually kind of brings us away from it. And also just not having our phones on us. Like we will just have times where we don't have our phones on us. That way we're not looking at any sales. We're not looking at our client stuff. We're not looking at any of those things that are distracting and then start those conversations. It's like, let's just be in the moment. But our employees, even they're like our kids. We talk about them all the time. Like, and it's not a bad thing or like a extra good thing. It's just like, oh, how do you think so-and-so is doing? Or, oh, so-and-so is having a hard time. What do you think about, maybe we should do this or do that? And we just kind of get caught in the conversation half the time that we're like, oh, we have not talked once about like anything to do with our personal life. But it's also hard because that is part of our personal life. Like
your business is your personal life.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Robert has from the beginning, he said, I want everything to blend. I want my workouts to make sense with the business. I want what I eat to, I want everything to blend. I want it to all go together. And that just made so much sense to me. So sometimes we have to, put a little distance in there when we need to like just have time together. But for the most part, we did it on purpose. So it's kind of hard to, make that separation there.
Yeah. Wow. That reminds me a lot of how our business is set up too, though. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad I held my tongue and let you say that last part because that was gold. That was seriously gold about everything blending because that's probably the best way to describe like what we're doing right now. It's like we're never doing one thing at a time. Like everything that we do basically has 5 different purposes and we kind of feel like a circus all the time because it's like we don't even have time to write down our agenda for the day. Like everything is just in our head to the point to where she knows that like just like by the look on my face, she says, "Hey babe," and I give her and I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, this isn't the time to ask, whatever it is." So, have you ever been on contest prep the same time as Robert?
No. No, I haven't. I don't think it's a bad idea because well, okay, here's the thing. If it's the very first time someone is going through it or both people are going through it, I think it is real difficult. However, having seen him go through it several times and then me having gone through it myself another time, I think now we would be able to do it. No problem, because we both know what's involved and we both know how hard it can be, the struggles that you go through, all of the ups and downs. I actually think it'd be really cool to do it together. And we actually planned to do one together at some point. And then I was like, I'm not doing a competition until we have kids because I just don't want to go through that. So we would have probably done it together this last time or this upcoming time if it weren't for me wanting to have babies. So I do think that it would be a really cool experience. But I think it would be really hard if both people didn't know what to expect. That makes it really hard, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Taylor's going to be competing in summer of 2023 in women's bodybuilding. She lost 50 pounds this last year. So she's on a roll right now. And yeah, based on what you're saying, I'm thinking that it sounds like a fun idea. We're going to need like more help with babysitting and more employees by then. We hired our first 2 employees, which has been freeing up more of our time. So trying to get to where you guys are at. But I mean, yeah, no, you guys are so set based on what everything that you guys have done with your businesses that I'm sure you'll have lots of help and the ability to just both focus and be tunnel vision together. I bet that's going to be a really cool experience when you guys do that.
Yeah, I hope so. I think it'll be pretty good. It'll be interesting too, because you guys already have kids and we haven't had a competition prep through also having children. So whatever next show happens is going to be an interesting one anyways, because we'll also have to balance like the home kids, all of that. Whereas like when he goes through a prep, I don't have to really, I'm like, oh yeah, he's fine. Or he, let him have his space, or he's got to go do his cardio or whatever it is. It'll be a little different when there's kids involved. So yeah.
My coach was awesome. He had me doing like all kinds of stuff with my son and everything. So we just had our daughter too, which is a terrible time to do a contest prep, but didn't even want to do it. And Taylor was like, you need to do this show. You are so close to getting your WNBF pro card. So she was spending most of the time with our daughter, and then I was spending pretty much every day with our son, working my job and everything too, and got second place. Gosh darn it. Okay, one more diet related question that I have that I've been dying to ask is with whenever I go keto, usually not keto, usually I'm consuming anywhere from 400 to 600 grams of protein a day. So like I pretty much live on gluconeogenesis. It's like basically a high carb diet, but I'm still getting like 100 grams of fat. That's kind of where I like my macros to be. And that's what I coach a lot of our clients. I do use keto from time to time, and we do teach keto quite a bit as well. I guess our goal on keto is always to try to, in terms of muscle mass, to try to push the envelope as far as we can with protein while still remaining in ketosis. I'm just curious, like, what your experience has been. Like, how much protein have you been able to eat and still be in ketosis so that you can maximize your muscle mass?
Yeah. So for me, I have always kept my fat higher than my protein. There was a couple of times where like one time I tried carnivore, and I tried carnivore several times, but one of those times I had a high protein approach, and that was not a good mix for me. But I think a lot of that had to do with carnivore. Every time I've tried carnivore, it's been a no-go. But other than that, really, I have tried to maintain a little higher fat or equal fat to my protein. And a lot of that stemmed from me having all the digestive issues. The fat really, really helps my stomach. So I have gotten, well, I guess probably the highest I've maintained my protein has been like 180 to 200, but also my fat equaling the same amount, 180 to 200 as well. And I also do a lot higher calorie too. Generally speaking, people are like, well, how do you eat that much food? And I think a lot of like the fat is dense. It keeps my energy higher, things like that. And not that I'm opposed to any way that anyone else does it. That's just what worked really well for my body. And like for clients and things like that, I really try to find what works well for them ratio wise. And that's going to be so different for everyone. Some people do much better on a higher fat, just depending on what's going on with their body. If they're having any autoimmune disorders or anything like that. And some people do really, really, really well with higher protein. It just kind of depends. And I think like finding that protein for them has been what's like so helpful. But usually my protein remains between like 68 to 72% in my building season.
I'm not on my phone because I'm ignoring you. I'm on my phone because I'm calculating all those numbers that you're just throwing out. And that's pretty high calories for building. I mean, that's awesome though. Like wow. I wish I could get all my clients eating 2,500 calories. That's what just came out to for me. I don't know if that's close. Yeah.
So generally speaking, I would say normal building for me is looking like 23, 25. With the pregnancy, it's been about 28, maybe I've gotten up to like 3,200. It just kind of depends on where I'm at, but that's one big thing I'm a big fan of is getting my clients to eat more food, specifically the females. I know males also have struggles with that, but I primarily work with females. And my goal is always to get them more food because a lot of them have been chronically under eating that they don't even know how to eat more food. So by me doing this in a building season, which rarely I'm cutting, I like my food. But it is for me to be able to live that out and say, hey, here's a full day of eating. This is how much it is. I don't love to share my macros all the time because then people try to follow it and then they're like, I'm gaining weight or I'm like, I don't have the same results, but I do have like days of eating on our YouTube and sometimes I'll do it on Instagram and things like that. And people are like, I'm a 250-pound man and I'm eating half as much as you. And I'm like, but you could be eating more. I think it's just finding that for your body. And what I used to maintain like 5 years ago was 1,800 calories, but I've just built myself to where now I can maintain 2,600 calories regularly. And I feel good. I'm not force feeding myself. My metabolism's just ramped up and I feel really, really good. So that's just that's my little story.
No, that's awesome. And when you put it on YouTube too, then like you're able to give some context around it and stuff. And you're able to share like, keep this in mind, this in mind, this in mind. Like I'm eating this because I'm building right now. I love the word building, not bulking too, by the way. I'm a huge fan of that word.
Yeah, that's good. That building is a good word to use. I think I did say bulking a couple times. But it is really good. And honestly, so I got to my heaviest after my competition, after I was doing all the binging and stuff. And I was eating significantly more post competition after I had kind of healed a lot from my binging and ended up losing like 20 pounds after that point.
Yeah.
So like I got up to my heaviest and I lost 20 pounds, even with eating in that much of a surplus over time. It took me a little bit longer, but it still was in a surplus during that entire time. I'm cutting back down just by like food choices, by like picking better options, better, cleaner sources and things like that. So even though I was in a surplus, it was still like my body was still reacting and responding well to all of that. So people have to learn to trust their bodies and to say like, if I feed it, it will treat me well. And a lot of times I think people are fearful of that. They think if I just don't eat, it'll have to respond. And a lot of times it's like, no, if you feed it, it'll respond well. And I love the protein. Protein is amazing. It does so many amazing things. And you literally can't live without it. And the amount of people that come to me that are like, I don't know, I eat like 50, 60 grams a day. I'm like, how are you living? That's so little. So yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of getting in your protein for sure. But for me, also keeping that fat up is well for, it works well for my digestion.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen this happen. If you had clients come to you that are eating 1,200 calories, and then you look at their macros and you're like, okay, we're going to put you at 1,500 calories, but we're going to go keto and swap out, this food, like just these food choices, which will technically on paper put them in a calorie surplus. But have you seen their body fat percentage improve after doing that?
Yeah. So I just had a recent client, and she was doing, well, for a while she was doing alternate day fasting, and she was like, I feel good. I mean, I'm not even hungry. I'm this, that. And like, you're probably eating like 2,500, 3,000 calories a week. Because when she started eating, on the days that she was eating, she still wasn't eating very much. And I was like, we're going to stop fasting. I'm a big fan of fasting. I think that it can be really beneficial, but what you're doing is not working well for you. And so she started eating every day. She started eating, 1,500 calories. Then the next week, it'd be like 1,550. And then the next week it'd be 1,600 calories. So we were slowly increasing. And she got to the point where she was eating well over 2,000 calories a day and still losing weight. And she's like, I was not eating before practically. And she was like, she had hit a bottom level where she just like could not push the weight anymore. And I said, it was such a process, because it's so hard to convince people, if you just eat a little bit more, like, and trust your body and trust me to lead you through this, we will get there. And some people can't make it to that point because they get so anxious about it. But those that do, like this woman, I'm just like, if I could just share you with the whole world, this would be great. Because it feels really good to be able to eat and say like, wow, my body is doing it all. Like my body is processing it all, and it's happening. Like it's releasing some of that extra weight that was not needed, simply because I'm giving it what it wants. So it's super cool. I love coaching for that reason. I hate the hard parts where it's like, you have to convince people, like, just trust me, but at the same time, when they do, it's like, I just love it.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. We've had a number of people that'll come to us and they're eating. It shows the calories they're eating, and even if we put them on a high carb diet, because all this shows that actually they don't have action step up state. They've been on high carb diets, and so I could teach that too. But even just switching all their carbs from sweet potatoes and eating more, it's like it boosts their metabolism and they start losing fat more than they were before. Our client that's coming over tonight, she's just bought a training package. She's coming over for her first in-person session. And we're going to have dinner afterwards, and she's eating about 1,200 calories a day right now, maintaining her body weight, not even losing weight on that. And she, I mean, on paper, she really should be losing weight. And so the plan is to switch her to either carnivore or keto. Yeah, I don't know, and then bump up her calories to at least 1,500 for the next 2 weeks and see what happens. But I'm 99% sure she's going to start seeing some results just based off of that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's pretty cool when we can help people to realize that it's okay. You can eat a little bit more food. Let's change the type of food and let's bump it up a little bit. And then they start seeing results. It's like, oh, they feel better, you feel better, and it's all smooth sailing.
Do you ever have anybody that once they make carbs from their diet, specifically carbs, even if it's good carbs like sweet potatoes, white rice and stuff, that their appetite decreases, and so they have a hard time eating the amount of food that you recommend?
Yeah. So usually that is the issue when someone first comes to me and they're eating 12 or 1,300 calories or whatever, however low it gets. And I'm like, we're going to increase. And it's usually if they're that low and they're like, I'm so full all the time anyways, it's very, very small increases, so that you can almost hardly tell But my goal is to always swap out, get rid of the carbs, get rid of all of those things. A lot of times carbs are more volume too. So they're getting more full on the volume than they are the density of the food. So if you swap those two out, you won't get as full unless you're having like big salads or something like that. So a lot of times if you swap out that volume for the density of the food, and you'll get nutrient dense foods as well, that is really, really helpful. And then also I always try to tell them it's going to be hard in the beginning, but for a week, just stick to these macros and tell me by the end of the week if you don't think you can get in all the food. And by the end of the week, they're like, I'm actually more hungry. And I'm like, oh, that's a good thing. We're ramping that up. So then the following week, we're like, okay, push through. Let me know how you're feeling towards the end of the week. And they get more and more hungry the more food that they're actually eating, because their metabolism, everything is starting to like, oh, like we're doing more. Okay, let's do, it just gets a little bit better and better. And then they start to have more energy and they're putting out more energy. They're like, I think I could do a workout now, or I think I could, go for a walk or whatever it is. So it's like, okay, now we're eating more, but we're also spending more energy. So let's increase this even more. And I find that is my key, is just like slowly increasing that food, not trying to rush anyone into like big bumps up in calories, unless they can handle it. And if they can, then fantastic. But if not, then we just take slow, steady movements. It takes a little longer. It takes a little more patience on their end as well. But I find that that's really helpful. And then switching out the volume foods as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Back when you said that you had tried carnivore a couple of times, I'm imagining that your protein was higher than your fat intake when you did that, because I know you like to keep your fats higher than your protein. You said that it didn't work for you at all. Could you maybe describe like exactly what you're experiencing? Because we've had a few of our female clients that we've put on the carnivore diet, which, like, for me, hands down, I love it 10 times more than keto. I could eat nothing but steak every day. So like our signature plan. I'm like, if you really want, if you can eat nothing but steak every day, like if you can mentally handle it and if you can afford it, that's going to get you the best results the fastest. Like, that's just kind of what we've been seeing, especially with the guys. I don't know why, but the guys seem to respond to it better. But we've had a couple ladies that have reported feeling bloated and just like not as much energy. And so we switched them over to keto, and they're getting a lot better results now than they were from what was working best for me. So I'm just curious, like what, I guess what you experienced and why you didn't feel so good.
Yeah. So one of the times specifically, I was higher protein, and I had someone coach me through it because I was like, I've tried carnivore before and I didn't really feel that well. So I'm just going to like have someone coach me through this and see if I can feel even better, or feel well on carnivore. So the first time I tried it, I was doing like my normal, I was, having fats, having proteins, things like that, but all from, animal sources. And then the second time I tried it, I did it with a high protein approach. And that one was just awful. Like, that one made me feel like I was so miserable. But I was super, super bloated. Like you were mentioning about your other female clients, I was so bloated. My stomach hurt so bad. And it was just like, I couldn't eat. I was just so full. And I kept telling the person I was working with, I was like, I literally can't eat. And then I would send pictures of like how big my stomach was. And a lot of people who try carnivore, they're like, they immediately feel thinner. They immediately feel just leaner, not holding as much fat or water. And it was just the opposite for me. It just felt like I was swollen, and especially in my midsection. So then I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to try that. And then one last time I tried it with a high fat approach again, and it still did the same thing. So I don't know exactly what it was. We talked about this on the live the other day, and I don't know exactly what it was that caused that for me. Other than maybe I just my body couldn't handle processing that much meat. I I really am not sure, because it's not like now I'm eating a ton of vegetables or anything like that, but I'm changing things up with, having yogurt, and I might have like some hemp hearts in it right now, or I might have some Brussels sprouts with dinner, which is a steak or chicken or whatever. So I'm still very meat based, but I have other options in how I'm going to get in some fats and maybe even some carbs with the vegetables and things like that. So I'm not sure why that was such a struggle for me when I'm still meat based with some added fat and carbs and things. And I don't know exactly what it was. And there's what is it? There's like what is it? Lectin? Gosh, I can't even remember what it's called, but there's like a oxalate. That's what it is. Oxalate release or something like that. And people say that can happen when you go carnivore, and that usually happens when you're going from like a carb-based diet to a carnivore. And so the oxalate release and that can happen where people just don't feel well. But me going from a keto diet, which is primarily meat based, I shouldn't have had to go through that process as well. But each time I tried it for a minimum of a month, because I like to give things time. Like, I might feel bad for the first week. Maybe I'll not feel very good for the first 2 weeks. By the third week, I'm like, what's going on here? And then by the fourth week, I'm like, this is either going to work or not work. But I like to give things at least a month, give it some time to get situated with my body, and then I make a decision off of that. But each time I tried for a month and it was just not a good fit for me.
Yeah. Wow. Our lady one of our ladies in Dallas reported that she and her doctor were speculating that it was an issue of too much creatine, because all of the meat that we recommend in our plans is red meat, which is very dense in creatine. And well, of course, we as bodybuilders go so far as to supplement it.
Right.
Her doctor was speculating that that having too much creatine was converting to creatinine, which is toxic to the body, and that may have been where some of her inflammation was coming from. So
that is very interesting. I'm interested. I'm gonna have to look that up now.
Yeah. To be honest, I'd be really surprised if that was the issue. What you're saying is making a lot more sense, and so I'm gonna tell her about this last bit of the podcast. She doesn't involve me, but I think she'll be really intrigued to hear what you just said, because that seems to make a lot more sense. I don't see how you can get too much creatine without supplementing that person.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Is I'm pretty sure they've done studies about how safe creatine is, and even in a surplus of it. So that would be a shock to me, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. But yeah, and I haven't looked too much into the oxalates either. But that is something that someone mentioned to me, and I was like, oh, I got to look into that. But then there was a couple other people that were like, yeah, that I've heard the same thing. So look into that and see if that makes a difference for anyone.
I for sure will. I just made a note to take some further research into that. So I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all my dying questions that I was, that I was just like literally dying to ask. And we're so thankful for your time on our show, and I totally respect your time. And so would really like to give you the opportunity to go eat some lunch and enjoy the rest of your day away from the screen. I guess one last thing before you go is the theme of our show is, as you know, a superset is when you take two exercises that are for opposite muscle groups, and it makes you better at both of those exercises, pairing biceps and triceps, pairing chest and back, and it makes you better at the next exercise that you're doing. So I'm curious if you found fitness. Actually, I'm not curious. I know that you have. I'm assuming that you found that prioritizing your health and your fitness to be a superset in and of itself that makes you a better business owner, a better wife, and a better coach.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I would say all physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all of those things, challenging myself with nutrition and fitness has increased and made all of those other aspects of my life just that much better. So yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Okay. And then last question, part B. One more thing that I just would like to, I guess, see your perspective is, have you ever been criticized for prioritizing your health and your fitness and your exercise, your working out, your recovery by people that maybe don't understand your brain?
Yes, absolutely. So much, even in my personal life, sometimes online, people have opinions of your life, no matter what you do. And I always just like to remind people, and I try to do it very kindly. Is just that I'm going to do what works best for me. And if I don't feel well, if I don't feel like I'm doing what's best for me, then I will adjust and I will change. But their opinion doesn't really doesn't hold a place in my life, because their opinion didn't make a difference when I was going through the hard times, and I'm not going to allow it to make a difference in the times where I'm actually doing well and feeling like I'm succeeding in whatever aspect. So yes, people love to place their opinions on you of what you're doing, or trying to prioritize your fitness or nutrition, or you're too strict, or you're too this, that, or the other. And just reminding them that you do have control over your life, and you're choosing to make those decisions. It's not, you feel like you have to do them. You're choosing to do them every day. And that usually gets them to zip it.
Maybe I'll try that. You have no idea how much that helped me, how much I need to hear that. Thanks. Yeah, when people see your highlight reel, it's really easy for people to get kind of half of the story. And the tongue is the most, James chapter 3 or 4. The tongue is the most powerful muscle in the human body. Forget biceps and triceps; you can do a lot more damage with that thing. And it's easy to be critical when you see somebody that looks happier, that looks like they have it together. But you're only getting half of the story when you see what they're putting on social media. So
yeah, and like I mentioned before, with like the depression, anxiety, all of that, people didn't know what I was going through, but they would make comments on the videos and things about, wow, you look so miserable. Wow, you look like this, or you look like that. And it would make me cry. It would make me feel worse than I already felt. And they weren't helpful during those times where I was feeling my worst. Yeah. That I'm not going to allow, others' opinions to make me feel bad about what I do now. And I do get a lot, way more than I probably should, that I'm positively toxic, like toxic positivity. Yeah. And that's hard to hear at times, but then I remind myself of where I've come and how far I've come, and the depression that I've stayed out of, and all the anxiety that I've not had, because I choose to live this life every single day. And because I do have a God that is stronger and more powerful than anything that can happen in this world. That is where I lay my faith. That is where I put my life. And I know that I'm going to be much more successful for myself and my family if I continue to do the things that I'm doing. And those few people may not like it, but that's okay.
Maybe it gives you a little extra motivation.
Yeah, there you go.
Those negative comments, especially on YouTube, they come at the right time. The right time from their perspective, the worst time from your perspective, don't they? It's like at the end of the day where you just really don't need to hear it. Like, you look like crap.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Great.
Yeah, that's what I needed to see right before I went to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. All right. Well, gosh, I'm like ready to start crying right now. No, that was extremely impactful. I can't tell you how much I really do love you guys. I feel like we know each other really well. We've only talked a couple times. And everything that you guys have done is just more inspiring to Taylor and I than you could possibly imagine with what we want to do with Skullbellz and opening up our gym. So I think the world of both of you, and I can't even describe how much respect I really have for what you do. So God bless you and your family and your baby and your business, and just keep doing everything you guys are doing.
Thanks so much. And you guys are inspiring yourselves. I mean, Taylor's looking amazing, and she always has, but you can tell she's been putting in the work, and you guys are just awesome and such genuine people. And I really appreciate that about you. So you guys keep doing your thing as well.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what God's plan is and just trying to follow orders. So.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Crystal. Well, thanks again, and you have a good rest of your day. Talk soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us in this entire episode. If you found this helpful or entertaining, we ask if you would please share this with a friend. That would be awesome. We'd love to hear what you think of the show, so any ratings or reviews that you have for us are very much appreciated. We do have a new episode every Saturday morning, so please subscribe so you don't miss those. Thanks again. God bless you. Bye-bye.